Today we are making some super affordable home decor, and this is a part of the Just Our Imagination playlist challenge. That is hosted by Brenda of Rustic and Lace DIY, Kathy Joe of Kathy Joe DIYs, and this month the co-host is me, Caroline. In this monthly playlist there are 3 challenge items we must use, and this time the items are ribbon spools, gift bags, and in celebration of Brenda's birthday, instead of a third item, we are recreating one of Brenda's DIYs, whichever one we choose. I will remind y'all about that playlist later in the video, but for now, let's get to crafting. This is the DIY that I am recreating of Brenda's, and I will leave the link to her video that contains this craft in the description box. When I first saw this DIY about a month ago, I thought that was a great idea to use that cake board to make a sign. And I went ahead and bought it, so I already had the cake board, and whenever they said we needed to recreate one of her crafts, I thought, well, it's time to use that cake board and recreate that craft that I liked so much. She used 3 of these wooden shelves from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to glue these together to make one bigger sign. And I stained mine with early American stain just around the edges that would show. Now her sign said, hugs and kisses are great, but if you really love me, do the dishes. Well, I wanted to put my own twist on it, and I had to make it weird and had to make it look old. And so I changed up the saying a little bit, and this will be a printable down in the description box. But if there are any English teachers in the audience, don't come at me. It's not supposed to be, grammatically correct. It's just supposed to be silly. So I'll have that down in the description box for you if you're interested. I printed that as an 11 by 14, so that will fit on this cake pan well. And the words ended up too close to the edge, so I fixed that printable after I had mine printed. So when you get yours printed, you'll have more space around the edges of the words, if that makes sense. So they're not so close to the edge, so it will look better. Now I used Mod Podge to attach this print, and I ended up having to redo this step, which I don't show me doing it the second time. But I used that shiny side and it just would not dry. The print would not dry, so I ended up flipping that board around and Mod Podging to the more papery side. And then whenever I go to glue this to the wood, I will rough up that shiny side so that it will adhere. That's what I should have done in the first place before I Mod Podged. I should have sanded that, shiny foil side so that Mod Podge would have adhered. I did sand the edges of the print just to smooth that out. That's optional. After I, used the X-Acto knife, it looked okay, but it did make it look better when I lightly sanded the edges. And I could see that white of that print, and I just wanted to darken those edges up, and so I did that with a stain pen. I used a combination of E6000 and some hot glue to glue this to that wood, that wood board that we made. I sat all these bottles on top of it just until that glue set up. Those shelves do come with 2 holes on each side, and I could have wood puttied those, but I just used some brads for paper. And they went through there. They were, long enough to where I could just, open them up on the back, and it held well. I didn't have to use any glue or anything. They're on there, really good. And another reason why I didn't do the wording is that I don't have a Cricut yet. And so I thought I'll make a printable and go that route. This is just a quick reminder that if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss any future videos. Those are free ways to support my channel and I greatly appreciate it. This is one of the gift bag crafts. I got this gift bag from the Dollar Tree this year, and I was just in my Dollar Tree the other day and they still had some of these. But I thought it was very pretty. And I'm going to put a backing on it of foam board because I didn't have a frame where I could just frame it. I wish I had a frame this size and, I could have just framed it. But I'm going to go this route and attach it to this foam board from the Dollar Tree using some spray adhesive. Once that's set up, I cut it out of the foam board, and now to make it look a little more aged, I'm going to use some more spray adhesive and just attach on the front some of this craft tissue paper. And to seal that off, I use some spray sealer for the top. I'm going to create some trim, a frame around this. So I took some of those extra long skewer sticks. Those were in my store the other day as well. It's the season for those. So you should be able to find some. And I'm going to create some trim with those long skewer sticks, just gluing one to the outside of that foam board and then on the front covering up the seam where the outside skewer stick meets the foam board. And then once I have that done, I'm going to use some lightweight spackling from the Dollar Tree and fill in the edges there, the gap, so that it looks like one piece of trim as opposed to two separate pieces. Once that spackling dried, I painted the trim with cashew chalk paint. I did have just a little bit of wrinkling, and if I had applied the gift bag to wood, I would have used an iron and ironed out some of those wrinkles, but I think it looks fine. It's supposed to look older, kind of vintage looking, and so the wrinkles are fine with me. Of course, if you don't apply the tissue paper, then you don't have to worry about that, but I didn't want to iron on that foam. I didn't know how that would take it, so I didn't do that this time and just lived with those wrinkles. This is my second gift bag craft here, and you could also do this with a shopping bag, a paper shopping bag. This craft was actually super easy and quick. So what I did is I cut this bag in half, and I'm taking the bottom half and I'm just using the width of the ruler and making some lines, some vertical lines here on this bottom half of this gift bag. And I will be doing those vertical lines all the way around the whole bottom of the gift bag. Now those lines on the bottom of the gift bag were vertical. I'm going to take the top half of the gift bag and I'm going to make horizontal lines and cut that into strips. I cut the lines on the bottom of the gift bag, but I left the very bottom of the gift bag alone. Of course, that's going to be the bottom of the basket. Now I'm simply going to take the top half of the bag and weave it together with the bottom half. And as you're going along, you're tamping down the strip that you just wove. There's a few things you could do to finish off the top, but I just opted the easiest, quickest way to just fold over the paper and glue it. I took some of the leftover foam board that I had and just made a rough little box to set down into the basket. And that's just going to give it some more structure. Now this little basket looks fine as is, but I wanted to do just a little bit more to it. So I'm taking some antique wax and going to age it up just a little bit. I covered the top of that foam box with some lace trim that I had, and I'm going to be putting in these little peat pots along with some Spanish moss and this tulip pick. I just had one, and so I just used what I had. It would have looked better if I had more than one. I got that tulip pick at Walmart for 97 cents. I dirtied up those tulips just a little bit with some of the antique wax. I took the handles of the gift bag and I just hot glued those down into the sides for another sort of decorative element. I did have just a little bit of puckering in with my weaving. That was me not being meticulous and tamping down each row as well as I could have. I'm going to put this, this is actually a label out of one of those wooden shelves from the Dollar Tree, and I noticed at the back of it, I don't know if what happened to the adhesive or why it turned brown like that, but I thought it would work well for this. So I'm just going to layer that along with this tag, just sort of taped on the front of it there to this. And you could go over this, because it's paper, you could go over it with some Mod Podge and seal that in. Even like the dishwasher safe Mod Podge, that would be good. That would give it a real plasticky coating on the outside to make this a little more durable and last a little longer, but I really like it. Doing this would be a really affordable way to make, some matching baskets, maybe for centerpieces if you were throwing some kind of a party. Like, imagine how affordable that would be, as opposed to going out and buying a bunch of matching baskets for a lot of tables at, something that you were having. This is my ribbon spool craft, and I'm taking a couple of these empty ribbon spools. And this will just be a paper craft. I'm going to use some scrapbook paper. I'm going to be covering these spools and making some rosettes. I will have these as a printable in the description box. One of them came from the Graphics Fairy, and the other I just did an image search for Victorian lady, and so you could do that as well. But I'm sure there were even more, images that would have worked on the Graphics Fairy. But I don't know what, if you do this, I don't know what the size of your ribbon spool will be, so you might need them to be bigger. So if you want to use my printable, you could just size up, like print at 150% if you needed them a little bit bigger, or, smaller if you needed it to, to be smaller. There's so many different ways you can make these, just whatever, is in your imagination that you want to do. But I could see the inside of that ribbon spool, and so I wanted to cover that up, and I used just a strand of beads there to cover that. Don't forget that this is part of a playlist that you should definitely go check out. There are so many talented crafters in that playlist, and it's so fun to see what each crafter does with the challenge items. This month, the challenge items were much easier than they usually are, so that makes me a little worried about next month's items. The link to that playlist will be in the description box of this video, as well as the links to Brenda and Kathy Jo's channels. If you haven't subscribed to their channels yet, you definitely should, because they are awesome. If you're visiting from the playlist, welcome. I hope you stick around by hitting subscribe. Thank you so much for watching today. See you in the next one.